back, everyone. JAYBONE here for Smash This Podcast. Doing episode number 4 of JAYBONE'S Jacked Up Jukebox, where we talk about all things hard rock and heavy metal. Quite the variety of stuff we're going to talk about today. Touching a lot of different kinds of music. Some classical stuff. All the way up to some real modern music. So, what do we start with today? Let's start with, we've started out a few of these episodes with some sad news, so let's kick it off with the news that came just a few days ago about the passing of Mr. Pat Torpey, drummer of Mr. Big. He was battling Parkinson's. Died at the age of 64. Such a shame. And from what I never followed Mr. Big that closely, but I know the music and the respect that the band has, and the people in the band, people outside the band, well loved, absolutely. Some of the tributes I read out there for Pat. Especially one notably from Matt Sorum, former drummer of Guns N' Roses. I'm not sure if he's in a band right now or not, but still a well-notable name out there. Came up in the industry together and helped each other throughout the years, getting this gig or that gig, or, with, whatever, fill in the blank with whatever band. And just well loved and respected. For me personally, like I said, Mr. Big was really never one of my favorite bands, but one song that always followed me through the years is Mr. Big's "To Be With You." It was it's a classic ballad. It was our high school, our class of 92, our theme song for our prom. So that's a song that's always followed me throughout the years, that jokingly said, oh yeah, it's our prom theme song, and it was the theme of the prom, and I think it was played like 3 or 4 times that night, and it was always like, oh God, Mr. Big. And, but now, and I even put a small tribute on our Facebook Class of 92 page, saying, that this song means something a little different now because of the passing of Pat. So yeah, rest in peace, Pat Torpey. We're gonna have a moment of silence. We lit the candle. We're gonna have a moment of silence for Pat right now. Alright, thanks everyone for having a moment of silence with me for Pat. This is also kind of sad news. Interesting though, speaking of Parkinson's, Judas Priest guitarist Glenn Tipton was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Now apparently he's been battling this over the course of the last decade, quietly. I did not know this. I'm sure some other people knew this. But Judas Priest is one of those bands that I hadn't really followed a lot over the last, I'd say, decade or so. I know they were still around kicking out music and stuff, but so Glenn Tipton is actually stepping. I mean, they just finished the album, but he's actually stepping down from being a guitarist in Judas Priest. Rob has said in a recent release that he is still a member of the band and apparently still might play with the band, doing one-offs here and there, depending on how he's, I suppose on the given moment, But as far as traveling on the road for this upcoming tour, he's going to be replaced by Mr. What's his name? I had it here. Oh, Andy Sneap. touring in Tipton's place. I don't know if he's going to become an actual member of the band. I suppose that's all to be determined. I don't think there's been an official press release on that yet, but nonetheless, he's going to fill in the boots on the road for Tipton. Very interesting that now both original guitarists are now gone from Judas Priest, and there's been. I'm not going to get into the big discussion right now on this episode as far as what does that mean for the band? Does it lessen their strength because original members are gone and now we've got fill-in members on the road? I'm not going to get into that discussion right now. That's another topic for another time that I might do all on its own. So I'm not going to give an opinion on that right now. All I know is that from the little things that I have read about Andy Sneap is that he is more than able to hit the road with these guys. He is someone that just has not stepped out of the garage. He's 48. He's produced several he is a musician and has produced several big-time releases for bands throughout the years. Just to name a few that I read, Testament and Megadeth and Exodus. Well-known big bands in the metal industry. So, that being said, I'm sure, he'll do fine with the band. So we'll have to see, going forward, what's all going to happen with Judas Priest. So, thoughts and prayers going out to Glenn as he fights this. It's a horrible disease. It really is. As you can see, like I just said, it just took Pat Torpey from Mr. Big. So let's let's change the mood. We'll switch gears and let's talk about some other news that has recently hit. Ozzy has announced, it's trying to switch gears with news of a new tour, but it's also on a bit of a somber note. As somber as you can get from Ozzy, because Ozzy's obviously trying to shine a silver coating on this news as much as he can. He announced No More Tours 2, as in this is his final big world tour. But he's also announced in the same breath that he's not done touring. So, take this with a grain of salt, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the guy is up there in age. I don't blame him for wanting to be done with touring. I think, honestly, and I don't mean this as an insult to, Sharon, Mrs. Osbourne, but she is his manager, and she is his wife, and with everything that family has gone through over the course of the last decade, just to say that, with health issues and other things, I'm sure Sharon is getting to the point with everything that she's gone through that maybe she just wants him home. I don't think that's too much to ask for. He's, what else does Ozzy have to do, as far as music to climb this mountain or that mountain or achieve this or achieve that? He's done it all. If Ozzy hung it up right now, no shame whatsoever. He's done, accomplished so many things in music, has written incredible releases with, countable amount of different musicians throughout the years. So yeah, I mean, is he, so this is, like I said, take this with a grain of salt. It may not be the end of the end. He's not saying he's completely done, but he certainly is going to slow down after this world tour, which is supposed to last till, what, 2 or 3 years from now. So, and that'll make him well into his 70s. I you know, we joke, but it's not really that funny. It's like, how in the hell is Ozzy still around with everything that he's done to himself? I don't know. It's crazy. So, the final tour, go see Ozzy. And there's been a lot of final tours been announced. Skinner just announced a final tour. Elton John just announced his. Excuse me. And I know I'm forgetting some, but there's been actually quite a slew of final tours announced over the last several weeks. So, yeah, crazy news there on Ozzy. Yeah, maybe we'll get out to see him again. It's been a while. It's been about 20 years since I've seen him. Oh my God, Ozfest and then the tour he did with Joe Holmes on guitar, I believe it was. Great tour. Let's see what's next here on the docket. Lot of new news to talk. New music to talk about. We'll talk about one of the busiest men in music right now, Mr. George Lynch, working on a lot of different things. New Dokken coming out in April. They've got a new song on. It's basically the live recordings that they did in Japan from 2 years ago in 2016, and they threw a new song on there, and they're really excited about it. And they just shot a video for it, so I'm sure the video is going to be coming out real soon from Frontier Music. So, yeah, good old Dokken, you know. I mean, that band is. Yeah, say what you will about Don himself and how his singing is, but getting his chops in there in the studio, I'm sure the new song is going to sound just fine. I have absolutely no worries. So, and then that goes, in the same question of, okay, well, where is the original lineup sitting as far as putting out more new music and or touring? Well, that they said that was a one-off, the little mini tour in Japan, and they did one gig somewhere in North Dakota or something 2 years ago. The other guys want to do it. Don is not such a big fan of it, but, they say everybody's got a price, so who knows what they're going to do. You never say never, really. We'll see. So, yeah, look for that in April. I believe it's April 20th. A lot of new stuff coming out on April 20th. I know I saw a couple others out there. So, yeah, George Lynch with Dokken. He's also in, of course, Lynch Mob. News coming out of Lynch Mob, their lead singer, Oni Logan, is out, and Robert Mason is in. But apparently it's just a temporary fix. Robert Mason is doing selected gigs with Lynch Mob over the course of this next year. I tell you what, though, man, I love both old releases, like the two first releases of Lynch Mob, the first one with Oni, the second with Robert Mason, and in my opinion, and this is me, everyone's got their own opinions on favorites and whatever. As far as Lynch Mob goes, my go-to Lynch Mob is the Robert Mason one. That dude can just, and he's still that good. He's with Warrant now. If you don't know, he's not leaving Warrant, and Lynch has openly said, I am not trying to steal him from Warrant. He realizes that is his home right now. So, yeah. And some recent gigs just went. If you go look up the music, some people put the live recordings out there on YouTube. There's already been a few out there. Go check it out. Man, Robert Mason singing old Lynch Mob stuff. That just gives me goosebumps. Love that stuff. And speaking of Robert Mason, he is also working on a new release for, and I think this is coming out through Frontier Music, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Super Stroke. So it's going to be Lynch, Mick Brown, and Pilsen. So basically 3/4 of Dokken with Robert Mason. And they're saying that this stuff sounds absolutely insane. So I'm guessing it's going to sound like old Lynch Mob / Dokken with Robert Mason singing. Please, just shut up and take my money. I'm so ready to hear that. Very excited. Can't wait to hear the new stuff from that. Coming out within the next year, I think. We'll see. So, yeah. George Lynch has his plate full, folks. And even KXM, new stuff coming out from them. Haven't heard a lot of that. I know I've heard it said by many people that it's great music. I'll have to go check that out sometime. Members of King's excuse me. Members of King's X and Korn's drummer, I think. Don't know. I've only heard a little bit of it, so I can't really give a big opinion on that. Also, more new music coming out from Halestorm real soon. They have started playing a new song live called Black Vultures, I believe it's called. It sounds absolutely incredible. Lizzie Hale's, I know news came out like 2 years ago that Lizzie Hale's voice was going through changes, or she was having troubles with her voice. And I know there was some negative opinions on their last release because it got a little poppy. Well, apparently this new one coming out soon is very heavy. So I can't wait for that. I mean, I like all their stuff. Lizzie Hale's voice is just, she is one of my favorite singers right now as far as female singers or any singers. She is just incredible, and Halestorm just rocks. So very excited about that. So I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to see a video or something soon from them. So yeah, Black Vultures, go check it out. Some decent live recordings of it. What's next here? Also new music. Lead singer Renee Phoenix of Fit for Rivals coming out with a single called Godless. Go check that out. Fit for Rivals. And honestly, this new stuff doesn't sound that different from, doesn't stray that far off from Fit for Rivals, but she does some tremendous singing on here. And I've always compared, since becoming a fan of Fit for Rivals, I've compared her to like a modern day Joan Jett. A little different, but if you have to compare it to someone right off the bat. So yeah, go check that out. That's on, it's either on Renee Phoenix's YouTube channel or Fit for Rivals, one of the two. But go look that up. Renee Phoenix's song Godless. Great song. And going back on the nostalgia kick, here's a blast from the past. Tora on their YouTube channel just put out an old unreleased version of Guilty that never hit MTV. Go check it out. It's funny because it's so old, but it's also really cool if you're a fan of the band. Go check that out. It's got the plane from their debut, the cover of the release on there, lights, and it looks like they're in an old abandoned airplane graveyard. It's really cool. Go check it out. Great song and that first release from Tora is just great, top to bottom too. Go check that out. And this is courtesy of Mitch LaFon, so I want to give him credit for this because I didn't see this anywhere else. I found this by accident, but I'm really excited for this. He had an interview with Combat Records and also Megadeth bassist Dave Ellefson. And Dave Ellefson's been working on bringing back old bands and signing them to new record contracts to put out new music. Recently was talking about, and I don't know a lot from this band, but Killer Dwarfs. But he also is, now this is what I'm excited about. The interview was with Dave Ellefson and Rick Hughes through Mitch LaFon set it up. So they actually had their first video meeting in this interview. Interesting. And Dave Ellefson through Combat Records is bringing back the band Sword and talked to singer Rick Hughes. Now, the reason why I'm excited about this is because Rick Hughes is a tremendous singer. And back when I was in high school, there was a band called Saints and Sinners that came out. It was one-off, and then, the industry changed and these kind of bands faded away. And they probably would be classified a hair metal band. But the musicianship in this whole CD, Saints and Sinners, was just awesome. It's one of my favorites back then. I still give it a few spins a year. And Rick Hughes is just just a tremendous singer. It's one of the things that turned me on for this release was his singing. And so the fact that he's bringing back the band that had a couple of releases before Saints and Sinners. So this is a band that I never heard of before. So I went and found some old Sword, looked it up, and the first two releases are just great sounding classic heavy metal from the 80s. It's got that raw sound because it doesn't sound like the crispness of today's releases. So it's got the early Metallica sound from the first two releases that sound real gritty. But there's just something about them. It's such a rich sound to them. By all means, go check out Old Sword. It's just great old classic heavy metal from they had a release from 86 and 88. So yeah, definitely excited about this. I'm glad I found that. I love finding new bands to check out, new or old. So this was really fun to find that one. So congratulations to Rick Hughes and Sword. Not sure who else is in the band, but nonetheless, just the fact that Rick Hughes is such a good singer, and Dave is giving him another shot at glory, to release some new music with Sword. That's just tremendous. So that's going to do it for this one, I think. Some sad news, but some more positive news. Trying to, get a healthy mix. Positive and negative. It's hard to do these days, gosh, So yeah, that's going to wrap up this episode of JAYBONE'S Jacked Up Jukebox number 4. If you like the content, by all means, go check out some more videos on the channel. There's a good mix of music and pro wrestling stuff, as you see in the background. Huge fan. Let's smash this podcast. I'm JAYBONE. Thanks for watching. Give it a like, give the channel a sub, and ring that bell for notifications. We'll see you down the road for the next one. Peace.